Hey, so good news, we just passed our footer inspection. So that means the next thing we need to do is cut some rebar down to length to get some kind of like batterboard type things going on to pull our strings to just verify just another time that we do have our footers in the appropriate spots. So once I pull the string line, I'll be able to actually verify where the center is on these footers. Hopefully we put them in the right spot. Then when we pour the concrete, we'll be able to sink our J-bolts down into the concrete in a wet set type of fashion.
Hello, everyone. We are excited to finally be pouring concrete footers.
And we're especially excited because we passed our inspection and we had some frustrations there because we had some difficulties with the footers themselves.
Right, the ground itself. You could go back and watch our videos of that if you want to see how we set up our footers and what we had to deal with. So this is a very much DIY concrete footer pour. You can see there we're just using a concrete mixing tub. We do not own a concrete mixer.
And we weren't going to rent one either.
No. So we're also using here just standard concrete. This is standard 60-pound bags. I think it's like 4,000 PSI.
Yeah, and I think around $4.50 per bag or so.
Now we have used in the past like fast setting concrete. If you're new to concrete, I really wouldn't use it. And even us having done it a few times, I still don't like using fast setting concrete. I prefer just the standard concrete. You have more time to work with it. It just makes it easier and not as stressful as setting concrete on itself can be pretty stressful.
Yeah, and we are not going to be constructing anything this day, so we really didn't need it to be fast setting anyway.
Right. The only reason you use fast setting it if you need to do something the same day. So right here, we're setting up lines. So the rebar Anna cut at the beginning was just to set up these lines. In our area, we don't have to put rebar into the ground.
But yeah, and at first I was thinking that we would put some rebar into these holes here, but it turns out we didn't really have a lot of time to do that. Our inspector actually came this day. He came around like I think 1 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something. And so we were working well into the evening just to get these 4 poured.
Right. And the idea here, so in our area right now, this is recorded in the winter, and we had an opening of about 3 days of no freezing weather. And you really don't want your concrete to freeze in the first 24 to 48 hours. So this was our time to do it. So we just had to move forward.
Yeah, we had to do it this day. It was a small window of time.
And side note, so we're adding water here and setting up the concrete, but those lines that we set ahead of time really ended up helping with setting up our J-bolts. You'll see later, we actually have marked lines on the sides of the forms as well. Oh, and this is about what you want your concrete mix to look like when you're having it like right before you put it into the ground, into your hole.
Yeah, not too soupy, not too watery. If it's too watery, then it will compromise the structural integrity of the concrete, the PSI.
Right, and too dry, and it just won't compact really well. That's almost bordering on a little bit dry there. So you'll see that right here, I start dumping it in while Anna starts kind of pushing it down with the shovel. And so that's really intentional. That's just helping it get in there. And in a little bit, Anna will start using a rebar on that to compress it even further.
Yep.
So here's a shot from above. We tried to use a mixture of above and side angles. Concrete's a really go, go, go situation. You really want to set up concrete wet to wet. You don't want your concrete to start setting up while you haven't poured the next batch. Like it really needs to be wet to wet.
Oh, and also just making sure, like I was looking down into the bottom of that hole at that point, make sure there's no organic material in the bottom of your hole, no leaves or anything like that.
Right. And so here Anna is slapping the concrete. I don't know another word for it. She did screed it. You'll see that in a little bit. And this is putting the J-bolt in.
Yes. And so this is for our 6x6 post base, which you see right there. And I'm just trying to make sure that that J-bolt isn't sticking up too high above that base. So keep squishing it in a little bit. And I was surprised by the resistance that the concrete already had.
That means the bottom is starting to set up already. And I think these are 8 or 10-inch J-bolts. I can't remember.
Now, you could have done this where you did it after. This is wet set. So you could have done this where you just poured the concrete and drilled a hole and put in a wedge anchor. But we decided we were going to go for it.
Well, and the J-bolt is just way cheaper. That's the reason I went for
Yeah,
it.
that's true.
And here's the compaction with the rebar.
Here's really slapping it.
Oh, there's the slapping. And then you slap it, and then here's the screeding. So this is screeding where you just kind of do a saw motion back and forth to level it. And note that our forms were already level before. We actually took a lot of time to set that up. And then setting up the next J-bolt.
Yeah, and it would have been great if our stakes were below the level of the form, so it would have been easier to screed off. But, oh, look, that one's hard to get in. I guess it was starting to
Well, and it's important as you get it close to the height that you want it, you start to jiggle it or wiggle it a little bit more so that the concrete forms in around it. You don't want it just to set a void into your concrete. I think you set up all of these. I just was mixing concrete this whole time.
Yeah, and you see you have a little bit of wiggle room. You can see that there's a little the slot is there, a little
Right.
bit of wiggle room if you don't have it perfectly centered. But
Right. You
the
have about an inch of play in one way and a quarter inch the other.
yeah, the combination of the string and like some markings really helped make sure that I had it centered. I think only one was a little teeny smidgen off.
So here's this. So it's like, if anything, a quarter of an inch off. And then here is this guy, and it has like an inch of play. So we're good. And there's Anna.
Hey,
So we have 2 done.
what time is it?
I don't know.
So it looks like we're running out of light.
But we have 2 more to go. And one already has concrete setting up in it.
So we have to do that one. So some of you might be wondering why we have square forms for our footers rather than rounded or sonotube style tubes for our footers.
Right. And the answer is that we actually did buy some sonotubes, but we just couldn't get them large enough.
Yeah, at our big box stores, I think we could only find 12-inch.
Right.
And for our local code, we were required to have at least 14-inch
Right.
for circular ones.
Which means we just wouldn't have passed code or inspection. However, the chief inspector did tell us that we could use 12 by 12 square ones and we're perfectly fine. So that's what these are. This is a 12 by 12 inch square forms that we made.
An advantage to the sonotubes are that it's a predictable size, so you can kind of predict how much concrete you're using a little bit better than just digging a hole in the ground without those.
Right. But that still worked out. We ended up using about, 4 to 6 bags of concrete per hole, depending on how deep they were. Though I did want to say, if you haven't done this kind of work before, don't be intimidated by it. While it's very exhausting, it isn't difficult and it is pretty easy to DIY.
I will say I do wish the bags came in a 40-pound size. That way I would be able to handle them a little bit better. 60 pounds and definitely 80 pounds are just a little bit too much for me. And hey, look, we're done.
All 4 concrete footers are poured.
Okay, guys. So that's it. We have finished the 4 footers.
Yeah, I don't think we beat the sun though.
No, well, the inspector came kind of late in the day. Like, he didn't get here until about 1 or 1:30.
Mhm.
And so from that just meant we couldn't pour as early.
Yeah, I'm actually impressed we got all 4 done like today.
Yeah. So it's not freezing. It shouldn't freeze tonight, but we'll cover it just in case.
Mhm.
And we'll see what it looks like in the morning or the next day. But hopefully it's good. You said all the J-bolts. How'd that go?
That's fine. The strings helped. And
Okay.
I marked the forms too with a pencil line down the sides. So even though they got sloppy with concrete on them, I could still see a faint line down the side, down the edge.
Yeah.
So that helped orient where that was. And also just eyeballing it in the center too.
Oh. Okay.
We're tired.
Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Thanks.
Just like concrete.
Slap that like button.
And hit subscribe.